Welcome to Vantage Points. I'm Hesham al-Maliki. Today I have with me my friend RJ Glomboski. He's from Rochester, New York, and we're going to talk about a few things about life, religion, and it's going to be interesting. I hope you stay around because this will be a good surprise for you. RJ, welcome to Vantage Point. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So first, tell me a little about yourself. Where were you born, your family? Give us a little bit.
Sure. I was born here in Rochester, New York. I spent almost my entire life here. Got my graduate degree at the University of Rochester. I'm a teacher in the Rochester City School District. I'm a libertarian, and I also happen to be a Muslim.
Very interesting. All right. I told you it's going to be surprising. So your name, what's your ethnic background or national origin? I mean,
So my full name is Robert John Glomboski Jr., so I'm named after my father. My family are Polish. They came over here in the early 1900s, and I think I am fourth generation that has been here now.
wow, very interesting. Okay. So you started by saying your name is so and so from Rochester, New York,
Yes, sir.
and you dropped the Muslim thing.
Yeah.
About that.
Sure. So it's kind of interesting. I found Islam kind of by accident. I'm a teacher, as I said, and I was teaching some students. And we were doing world religion, and I was interested in bringing actual practitioners of faith into my classroom so that they could have, an authentic learning experience. Rochester has a fantastic public market, and we actually had a stall where a Muslim community was offering to talk to people. I invited one of the gentlemen into my classroom, and one thing led to another. They gave me a bunch of stuff to read. They gave me a Quran, and I just slowly found myself kind of, for lack of a better word, falling in love with what I was hearing and reading and experiencing. And about 6 years ago, I took that step and I declared my faith, and I reverted to Muslim.
Excellent. Well, God bless. And the people around you, how did they take that conversion or reversion, as we call it?
Some people looked at me kind of apprehensively, like, what is wrong with you? Other people were much more open and really didn't mind. My wife is fantastic. She comes from a not really religious functioning family, I should better lack for a better word. And she's been nothing but open and welcoming and friendly. And she's been more than willing to learn and share. She's great right now during Ramadan for me, make sure, when it's time to break my fast, all my stuff is ready for me. So she is, I in my life to have someone like her.
That's awesome. You broke a second at the very end. You were talking about that your
Hmm.
wife preparing the food for you and Ramadan,
Hmm.
supportive, and that's awesome. And God bless her. Like family support is, of course, very important. I've heard so many stories about people converting not only to Islam but from their
Hmm.
family's religion to another, and then so many different problems happening. So I'm glad to hear that your family, your wife in particular, was
Hmm.
supportive and open-minded about that.
Yeah, it's nice. I haven't really had too many problems, which most bizarre is actually because I teach in the city. When I mention I'm a Muslim to other coworkers, they look at me apprehensively, and I've actually had a couple situations where they've said disparaging remarks about Islam, and I've had to be like, I'm a Muslim. That was kind of offensive what you said to me. And they've kind of had to backtrack, and I've been willing to, sit there and talk to them and try to explain, what you said is not, an actual belief that Muslims have, and that the things that you are believing is just stereotypes, and it's has nothing to do with the actual religion of Islam. So it's been fortunate. I've been have some teachable moments as well.
Excellent. And the fact that you experienced that yourself, you see the transformation from to
Hmm.
not know the information that you know today, and you were susceptible to like misinformation, like
Hmm.
the people who are saying some of these things to you. I remember in my early activism days, I thought that what is the best way to create a communication with those who like consider me an enemy or
Hmm.
misunderstand my culture and my religion. So I joined the Tea Party.
Okay.
before it went all berserk
Yes, it got a little crazy there.
on all of us. But I mean, it was still brutal at
Hmm.
the time. But yeah, I mean, so I understand what you faced. Um, so what, like, if any particular verse or hadith or something that like clicked, a light bulb lit in your head and said, "That's it." Can you
Um,
a little bit more?
wow, I think there was a lot of things. I think I got the chapter about thunder. I know there was a lot in there that just spoke to me about Allah's power and that His Majesty. One of the shortest surahs at the very end, the one that I say during my prayers all the time. I'm probably going to pronounce it wrong because my Arabic is horrible. Ikhlas, I think it is Ikhlas.
Ikhlas,
Yeah,
yeah.
Ikhlas. That's where I probably was before I realized that it was like that I would be saying it all the time in my prayers. It became like one of my favorite prayers, and I say it lots of times throughout the day. Just to recenter myself, get myself refocused. But a lot of the stuff where it just focuses you about like the majesty and the power of Allah and how forgiving and merciful He is, and how it's through Him alone that we're here and we're able to live and enjoy these lives. I love constantly how it always encourages you to look to the signs of Allah, that the signs are all around you, that many people who are ignorant or refuse to open their eyes, or refuse to acknowledge the fact there are signs all around us. All you have to do is open your eyes or just ask Allah to show you, and they'll be there.
That's an excellent point, and a lot of people. Here's the my thought about it, and let's see what you think. A lot of the people, because of the media and
Hmm.
the portrayals of Islam and Muslims from way before 9/11, it's nothing new.
Right.
They think if they leave their religion to another one, or if they become atheists because of something that they realized, they don't even bother looking at Islam because they automatically think Islam cannot be better than what they left. Is that something
That
that you
Yeah,
experience?
that's actually kind of how that kind of follows to my story. Actually, I was raised Catholic for my whole life. I went to Catholic schools, Catholic high school, and by the time I got to college, I started falling away from the church. I tried dabbling in almost every other religion that I thought of, but never bothered to think of Islam at all. And like I said, it wasn't until that chance experience at the public market that I was like, "Hey, let's look into this and see what they have to offer." And I found that they had more to offer than I could have possibly imagined.
Mhm. And as you mentioned, there in the Quran, the teachings of Islam in general encourages you to question things,
Hmm.
to like scientifically look into things. And I mean, Allah challenges people in the Quran to look into the skies, into the oceans, into their bodies.
Hmm.
Think, how could this come without a master, a creator? So there is a lot of science in Islam, and it does not contradict the what we know today as modern science. As a matter of fact, one of my favorite parts is the embryology component
Hmm.
of
Yep.
Islam, and
Yeah.
how many embryologists, physicians, embrace Islam after like studying the Quran that talks about this part
Hmm.
and compare it with the science that was not available until maybe 100 years ago, or not even.
Exactly.
Quran was
Exactly.
revealed 1400 and plus years ago. Um, so yeah, so that's the science part is very important, and the logic part is very important.
A lot of people don't realize that there's a lot of logic and reason that goes into Islamic thought, that it's not just blind obedience, that no, there it encourages you to use reason and use logic and see how it is compatible with the will of God, that it's not something completely different from it.
Exactly. So you've been a teacher for a long time,
About a dozen years now, yeah.
and that's your profession from the get-go.
Yeah, I was trained right out of college and jumped right into it. So I've done this, and I have a part-time job that I picked up, now that schools have been off. But yeah, primarily that's my full-time job.
Excellent. And you teach in public schools or private
Yeah,
schools?
I teach in the Rochester City School District, so it's the biggest public school district here in Monroe County.
In Monroe. Okay, very well,
Mhm.
very well. And what is the like Muslim community like in Rochester? What is the makeup and
Rochester has a pretty large Muslim community. It's gotten much bigger over the last 5 or 6 years. Our main mosque, the Islamic Center of Rochester, has actually gone through some renovations over the last 5, 6 years to accommodate the growing populations of Muslim people who have come to the city. I know just as a teacher, I have a lot of refugee students who have come into the city. Many of the refugee students happen to be Muslims as well. I have a lot of students from Yemen. Last few years, I've had a lot of Yemeni students. I've had some Palestinian students. So we have a very diverse population. It's not like it's just one group that's primarily, the dominant group in the city.
and are there any refugees from Syria?
Yes, we do have some Syrian refugees as well. So anywhere, unfortunately, where there's some issues of hostility and violence, those people, we end up getting many refugees here in the city as well.
Mhm. And like the roughly speaking, the population compared to the general population of the city, percentage-wise, do you have any?
Oh, I would say it's very small. The city is primarily African American and Latino, so the Muslim population is very small. I would say it's probably even right around the same population as the Asian American population in the city. So maybe only a few percentage points is what I would guess.
Gotcha. And you have more than one mosque in Rochester?
Yeah, there's quite a few mosques actually. There's the main one is the Islamic Center of Rochester, and then there's a bunch of smaller mosques scattered throughout the city because that one major mosque is it's in one of the suburbs. It's in Henrietta, but they actually have kind of like a smaller like sister mosque, I kind of call it, that's more closer to some of the other people in the city. So I'd say we have at least 5 or 6 mosques here in Monroe County.
Hmm. And back to teaching, you teach history, you mentioned. To
Yes,
what
sir.
grades do you teach?
Right now, I'm certified to teach 7th through 12th graders. So I'm currently teaching the 7th graders and doing U.S. history up until the Civil War is what 7th grade covers this year.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's a very interesting time too.
yeah, it's quite a chunk of a period. Yeah.
Yeah, and the curriculum is put by the state or by Rochester.
The state generally creates a curriculum. I tend to ignore it a lot because a lot of the curriculum I feel is very top down, very ignorant, very biased. So I probably haven't used the textbook in the last 10 years. I make all my own stuff. I create all my own things. I've had kids tell me they love the stuff. And as long as my kids are passing, most administrators tend to just leave me alone because they're
So,
happy with the results.
so how do you like the city tests based on their own vision of what the students should learn, and therefore, when the students are doing good in those exams,
Hmm.
or they're okay since you're doing what you need to do anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. So because I don't sit there with a textbook, they don't mind because I'm still instructing the children. I still use a various, different types of techniques to get them to understand the curriculum that they want me to teach.
Yeah. So you still like you just use creative way in order to
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
students rather than the standard cookie cutter. Um,
Exactly. And unfortunately, a lot of the stuff that they want us to give pushes a very libertarian. I completely abhor the idea of the state being seen as, a godlike figure here to save all the people. So I let the kids know, I kind of have a personal bias about believing that the state is the savior to all of mankind. And so I let them know that I'm going to be teaching a very, liberty oriented way of understanding American history and politics and economics when I teach it to them.
so let's address that a little bit. So you mentioned
Sure.
you're a libertarian and you're a
Yes, sir.
Muslim and
Yep.
you're Polish and
Yep.
a teacher in the Rochester school. So
Yeah.
how could this hodgepodge come together? Like, how do you reconcile all these?
Sometimes I don't even know myself. I guess it's just, I'm just blessed by Allah to be able to be put in a situation to, benefit from all the things that have come my way. I got, the stubbornness from my Polishness sometimes causes a problem here or there. Being a teacher helps me in other circumstances as well because I'm have to be able to adapt quickly on my feet and get used to helping people from a variety of a background. I guess without being a teacher that kind of sought me, encouraged me to seek out people of different faiths to come into my classroom and share their knowledge with students. So I guess I'm kind of thankful that all the jigsaw puzzle pieces kind of fit perfectly to, I guess, give me the life that I have right now.
So you're a libertarian but open-minded at the same time?
Yes, sir.
How does that work? because most people
Well,
don't think that's the possible.
yes. So my standing on this is I believe that liberty is for all. There's no, it's only for a certain group. It's only for people who are born in the United States. No, natural rights that we're all born with these rights. I believe that as long as what I'm doing and what you're doing isn't really hurting anyone else, that we should be allowed to engage in our peaceful transactions, go about our business. And like I said, my business is my business as long as I'm not hurting you, and your business is your business as long as we're not interacting and hurting other people. So I feel that it kind of meshes together well. I don't cause or try to harm anyone else, and I'm hoping that no one else tries to harm me. And I believe that that fits perfectly with the whole libertarian philosophy, in that liberty works if people are willing to voluntarily help each other and they're willing to not use force when things get a little tricky, when things get dicey.
So let's go a little bit to the grain of the thing here. So
Mm-hmm.
let's talk, for example, about the issue of being libertarian.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean automatically Libertarian Party affiliation, or that's your personal predisposition to abide by certain philosophy or principles?
Just because I am libertarian doesn't mean I'm automatically need to vote Libertarian Party straight way down the ticket, like you might see people from other parties. If I think that there's a candidate who supports policies I believe in, and I feel that they're just policies and that they will benefit people, you can get my vote. Now, I am a member of the Libertarian Party. However, there's different caucuses within each party, and the one caucus I think that I'm part of tends to promote this idea of free markets and individual freedom much more so than some of the other, I guess, wings of the party.
So, therefore, you are for principles rather than party affiliation. So
Always have. Yep.
yeah, let's talk about those principles. What is the
Sure.
number one principle that you abide by? Is it the do no harm, for example?
Yeah, so I love the whole non-aggression principle. I think that that kind of fits in perfectly with Islam, because there's verses in the Quran that says Allah displeases the people who causes mischief and harm upon the earth, and I feel that that fits kind of perfectly with the non-aggression principle, that as long as what I'm doing isn't causing harm and I'm not aggressive towards people and I'm doing the best I can to make other people's lives beneficial, I feel that they fit perfectly together like that. So that's kind of what my overarching thing is. It's kind of two rules: do all you've promised to do, and um, don't hurt other people or their property. And those are kind of my underlying principles that kind of guide me through.
And you can apply those wherever you are, whenever
Mhm.
you are. It doesn't have to be with the Libertarian Party.
Exactly.
And I mean, if the Libertarian Party abides by those principles, or
Hmm.
the candidate or whatever, then so be it. If no better candidate out there, but it's not a limitation, it's a philosophy of life that you do not cause harm to others.
Correct.
And it's a voluntary exchange of ideas and goods. You do not
Hmm.
force someone on your ways or force their property out of them.
Exactly.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. And over like, how long have you been like subscribing to this philosophy?
It's actually kind of funny. I kind of found libertarianism around the same time I found Islam, which is kind of interesting. That I actually found libertarianism through Ron Paul, through some of his readings and some of his speeches, and I got really interested. And then when he started talking about the Federal Reserve more, I kind of fell down that rabbit hole of what the Federal Reserve is and how it impacts the monetary system, and found Ludwig von Mises and found a whole bunch of other authors, Hayek. And from there, my ideas of libertarianism and what liberty stands for just kind of grew in ways that I never thought of before.
So, a couple of things. I want to talk more in a second about the Federal Reserve, because a lot of people think that that's a conspiracy theory and stuff. But let's first address the issue you raised. So, at the same time, almost you found Islam, you also discovered the libertarian philosophies or liberty
Hmm.
philosophies. And did you see commonalities and similarities between?
Yeah, I did. I saw a lot of similarities. One of the biggest similarities I saw was this whole emphasis on personal. One of the things I loved about Islam the most is it's on me and my good works and my faith and my dedication. I can't put my faith into somebody else and then automatically I'm just going to earn my way into a great afterlife. It's all about personal responsibility. So I thought that the idea of liberty and the emphasis of that coincided very easily.
So you're not a Polish warrior who's going to convert everybody by the sword, right?
No, sir, I'm not. I do not believe in converting by the sword. Maybe my ancestor did a couple generations ago, but definitely not me.
All right. So now to the Federal Reserve. What
Hmm.
have you learned that is could be non-controversial, for example, and
Hmm.
factual based,
Hmm.
that it
So one of the
stands the
things,
claim of that it's a conspiracy theory.
okay, so I've read a lot of the conspiracy theory stuff. I've read pro Federal Reserve things. I've listened to debates on both sides. So one of the things that I know for a fact is that since the implementation of the Federal Reserve, the purchasing power of the American dollar has dropped nearly 90%, and probably even more now with this recent round of ballots that we've had. We've never had in the history of humankind a fiat currency backed by nothing survive long without reverting back to zero. No matter how far you go back in all of human history, anytime we decide to substitute paper and gold, paper for gold and silver, we end up having this kind of this disaster. It hasn't hit us yet, thankfully. I'm hoping that maybe we can correct the ship and get away from this obsession of printing money out of thin air. But it unfortunately doesn't look like that's going to happen anytime soon.
So the concept of fiat money is that it's currency backed with nothing tangible. It's
Correct. It's
just
just you have to use it because most of the money has a stamp on it. It's a legal tender note that says this money is legal tender for all debts, public and private. You can't convert that paper money into, like you said, any tangible object like you used to be able through almost all of human history up until about 1913 when we began to slowly get away from that.
And I believe there were iterations of the Federal Reserve before this
Yep.
current 19
Yes. Yep. There
iteration.
was
So
the
it's
second Bank of the United States, and then there was the first Bank of the United States, and both of them kind of did the same thing that's happening now. They inflated the currency supply. We had economic panics. Americans were at least smart enough to realize back then that printing money out of thin air was a bad idea.
mhm.
And Andrew Jackson closed the second bank, and then we had no central banking system for almost the next 80 years in the country.
And Andrew Jackson has a very famous quote, like lambasting the kind of the owners of
Yes.
Second Bank of the
Yeah,
United.
Jackson definitely hated the bank. One of the reasons he hated the bank so much is he lost a bunch of money when the Panic of 1819 hit, and he saw himself personally affected by what he saw as a central banking cartel and vowed for the rest of his life to oppose central banks.
Mhm. So, in a nutshell, to the viewer, the what does the model that is now the Federal Reserve
Mhm.
does to the wealth of the individual?
So every time the Federal Reserve prints more money out, it devalues the money that you and I already have. So what this does is creates prices go up. We call that inflation. So you will see, I'm sure just in your lifetime, we've seen prices of goods that since we were children double and triple in price. And it's not because the items themselves to make it become more expensive. It's, and according to the Austrian theory of economics, which I follow, it's because the amount of currency in circulation is consistently devalued, which drives prices up.
So it's like similar to a cup of tea. You have the tea bag, and
Mhm.
you finish that cup, and you pour another cup of water in that same tea bag, and then you keep on pouring and drinking from the same tea bag. So the value, the
Exactly.
not enough caffeine or tea or whatever it is
Hmm.
that you're drinking, it's devalued, it's diluted.
It's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
So another example I've given to my students at school is we used to give the kids paper dollars for being good in school. And the kids realized, well, if we just save it all up, we can then go to the store and buy everything at once. And they began to issue out so many of these fake paper dollars that the kids were walking around with like 100 of them in their pocket. And us teachers were the ones buying the items for the school store. And we quickly realized that they were printing out too many of these paper dollars. And so they had to raise all the prices at the school store. And the kids got all mad. And I had to explain to them, guys, that's how economics works. If you keep printing out money out of thin air, eventually you're going to cause all the prices that you use that money on to go up.
Hmm. So what would be the way to do it? Like how to fix the system? And is it going back to gold and silver as the tangible connection to what is known as legal tender?
I am what they some people criticize call a gold bug. So I soundly believe we need to go back to a sound monetary system, which is based by gold. If you look at what's been going on in China and Russia, they've been buying an exorbitant amount of gold and hoarding it, and we're not entirely sure why. We know that Libya, actually prior to Gaddafi being overthrown, had planned on creating a new gold currency for Africa. and we see what happened to him when he dared to challenge, the U.S.'s dollar hegemony over the rest of the world. So I believe that gold will eventually reassert itself as it has done over the course of human history for thousands of years.
And in that case, like the tangible amount connected to your dollar, it's equivalent. There is no inflation per se.
Yep, governments can't print gold out of thin air. And that's one of the reasons governments don't like gold and will do almost anything they can to discredit it, because it limits what, especially the United States military industrial complex, can do if we cut off the faucet of free money to them.
So in the remaining few minutes, I want you to, for example, invite those who are not so much aware about Islam, as well as those who are not so much aware about the principles of liberty. I'm not talking about the Libertarian Party. I'm talking about the principles of liberty. What would you say to those two groups? And would it be the same group, like the same invitation?
That's a good question. I would think it would kind of almost be the same kind of topic. I mean, for me, it kind of was the way that I found it. I realized that if you're looking for a way to understand how the world really works, if you're looking to understand how things should be, if you're looking to understand how your life can be so much greater and how the people around your lives can be better and how society can be better, that these two paths that you could follow will do that. And it's not like they're exclusive, that you can't do them both together. I know for myself, I had a really bad anger problem. I consistently was losing temper on myself, ruined a lot of my relationships. However, once I was able to revert to Islam, I found myself much more able to center myself, to control myself. And I think Allah, that he was able to help me do that, because I don't know if I know I would not have been able to do that on my own. The same thing with the liberty movement. I was raised not really in a political family. Going to college, we were kind of indoctrinated into embracing socialism, and that, socialism means equality, and socialism, they say, means, everyone is treated fairly. And then as I started doing more research, I was like, liberty is the way to that. Liberty allows everyone to be free. Liberty encourages people to achieve the best that they can. Liberty holds those accountable who before might not have been accountable. So for instance, central bankers, these big businesses are being supported not by liberty, but because of central planning, because of government, who must take from people in order to support them. So I guess I would really want people to ask them, would you like to see your life get better? Is there a way would you like your children's lives to get better?
And what about Islam? What would you tell your American neighbors about Islam, for example, to invite them to read the Quran?
Oh yeah, I think one of the things that I've best done is to talk to people, is let them know how many stories are exactly this or very similar to the Quran as in the Bible. And most Christians have no idea how many stories are the same, how we revere the prophet Jesus or Isa. And when I tell them, they seem kind of shocked at first, like, wait a minute, that story is in your book as well? And I'm like, yeah, it's there. We believe in the same prophets and the same message and the same beliefs as you. We just believe God is one and not in these different forms that many of the other religions believe in. And I guess it's just a way to let them know there's so many similarities. And I guess that's one of the reasons I was able to so easy, is that being raised Catholic, so many of the stories I've known and I was raised on. So to me, I could see how those stories all fit into the bigger story and the bigger revelation.
Excellent. And we're going to end by asking you about Ramadan. How's Ramadan for you? How has it been in the past? Is it different this year under the COVID-19 situation?
Ramadan for me, I'm not going to lie, was very rough. My first couple of years being, the only person in my family that fasted. No one really quite understood what I was doing. These last couple of years, it have been a little bit more easier for me. The first few days are kind of grumpy. My wife will probably attest to that I was kind of a little more grumpy the first couple of days than I probably should have. But thank God, things have been going well. No, I haven't had any slip-ups, and I look forward to breaking the fast this evening with my family.
Awesome. RJ Glomboski, thank you very much for joining me today on Vantage Points. Ramadan Mubarak, and looking forward to hosting you again soon.
Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate the time. Have a great day.
Thank you. Yep. This has been Vantage Points with Hesham al-Maligi. There are hashtags and there is a hashtag. This is the hashtag. Take care, America.